It's really an honor and pleasure to be invited here to share with you what I've done in terms of ensuring continuity and sustainability of projects that are very dear to me. I didn't even consider them to be family businesses until I was ably guided and advised by Elaine and the team that actually they are family businesses. I started Masaka School for the Deaf in 2005. The reason why I started it is a very personal story for me. There's not enough time to share that here. But most importantly, it is a social enterprise. It is not for profit, neither is it for loss. And what I've done, which I'm going to share, is actually protecting my enterprise from my family, while at the same time ensuring that my family continues to participate in that enterprise without it being a burden on them. It's a bit confusing, but I hope eventually I'll deliver that message. To start with, family first, business forward. Now, family in itself is a unit on its own. And then business is also a unit on its own. And I like the question of what is a family business, but also what is a business that belongs to a family. Now, the biggest businesses we have in our world, whether it's Walmart, BMW, Porsche, Nestle, they actually are owned by business, by families, Ford, Motors, and so many. On the other hand, those families have continued in perpetuity as a result of the way they've structured the continuity and succession. So, Masaka School for the Deaf was a project I started when I was a senior manager in PwC. I went on to be partner and managing partner and served that firm for over close to 30 years. But I funded the school with support from friends to ensure that deaf children get education. And the number that was shared earlier on, yes, we started with 12 learners in 2005. Currently we have 134, but over the last 20 years, we've provided education to 862 deaf children. 13 of them have gone on to graduate from the university. 6 of them have returned and they work at the school. So because it's a very passionate project to me, and it was never meant to generate income, but it is a social enterprise that I strongly believe in, I had to structure it in such a way that, number one, it continues, and number two, it does not become a drag on the family, while at the same time ensuring that the family continues to participate in it. And it's been a journey, but in 2021, I then set up Masaka Vocational Training Institute. And the reason why I again set up the Vocational Training Institute is because the questions I used to get is what happens to these children when they leave primary education? And I was not going to set up a secondary school because, again, the next thing, what happens when they leave secondary education? But fortunately, we already had a vocational training scheme section within the primary school, knowing very much that however much literacy and numeracy you give them, it's very difficult that they are going to continue into secondary and tertiary education. So it's more important to give them skills that will enable them to have independent living, and that was our ultimate objective. Let them be able to read and write. Let them be confident and assertive. Let's break the stigma that we have in our communities about the deaf children, but most importantly, give them skills to enable them to live independently. So the vocational section was very, very successful, so successful that during the lockdown, there are so many young people who had been locked out of school during lockdown, and now they were coming to our school for the deaf to join the vocational section so that they can get basic skills. And for those of you who remember, Uganda had the longest lockdown, especially for the schools. So you'd have maybe a 16-year-old who is in senior 2 and has been out of school for 2 years. And by the time they go back to school, they will be 18. And it's very, very unlikely that he or she would want to go and start off from where she ended 2 years ago. So our message to them was, you come and get a skill, whether it's baking, carpentry, tailoring, hairdressing, you name it, and you get some basic certification. So in the unlikely event that you don't go back to secondary school, you actually have a certification to then go and do some work on your own. That became very successful that I decided now to set up a fully fledged vocational training institute. And Elaine has been there, Paul has been, John has been, to mention a few. Very, very world-class, big investment on my part. It was never meant to be income generating, but also not for loss. So I put in a lot of money for a cause and for a purpose. Now, it's been very, very successful as we opened it in 2023, and we've then partnered with so many other projects, including oil and gas, ECOP training. We're doing a lot of work for the IDI, Infectious Disease Institute. We're doing a lot of work for various programs, MasterCard Foundation, one of them. There's so much funding that is coming into the part of the world to train the youth and ensure that the youth get skills. So I've got a team of 32 people who work at that institute. Currently we have 322 learners, and it's very, very successful. It's been so successful that I now have to think about its continuity. So I chose to partner with Masaka Diocese, which is a Catholic institution, to safeguard our mission of providing education to the deaf children, as well as ensure continuity of these two institutions beyond my life. We fear talking about death, but the truth is, whenever you talk about continuity, succession, legacy, what will happen when I'm not here, it's actually about that. And interesting, by the way, we fear more about being forgotten than death. Because death will die, that much we know. But we try and do so many things, including putting our names on our cars that we drive, so that somebody will remember us when that car is around, when we are gone. And of course, that's not how it works. So when I started this institute, it was from conviction and compassion. I believed that education and vocational training could transform lives, and it has done that over the last 20 years, especially for the deaf youth who are often overlooked. So like I said, there's one thing that I knew. I knew I would die someday. Hopefully very, very many years from now, not soon. But I refuse to let my aspiration, my mission, my vision of providing education to deaf children and skills training to young people to die with my death. I refuse. And because I refuse, I decide to do things now when I'm alive and I'm able to do them, and I can do them on the terms that I think are the right terms, with support from all the different stakeholders, including my family and people who work for me. So why did I choose Masaka Diocese, or to be more broader, why did I choose the Catholic Church? Number one, governance and continuity. For those of you who know faith-based institutions, whether it's hospitals, whether it's schools, there is governance. The Pope died not so long ago, but we continue. Yeah? And that has been happening for the last 2,000 and so many years. St. Mary's College Kisubi, Namilyango College, Nabingo Trinity College, Namagunga, Uganda Matters Institute, all the world-class education institutions in this country are run, owned, and led by Christian missionaries, in particular, the Catholic church. I chose an institution where we have shared values and mission, and we are aligned. But most importantly, I chose the institution for risk mitigation. Like I said, I put in a lot of personal money and resources into these institutions, not at the expense of the family, but I could not kid myself that when I'm dead, my family will put money in those institutions. It would be so unfair for me to expect them to do that. So not only have I partnered with an institution that is going to ensure continuity, I've also done very interesting financial planning, endowments, and various other aspects within my will and testament to ensure that these projects continue, because they should continue. When you see the difference that we have made in the lives of these children and how they've gone on to be very, very independent and have a meaningful life, and even helped change the stigma within the society, it would be very, very selfish of me to simply die and that institution dies. So, like I said, I refuse to do that, and I've done what I think is the right thing to do. So, personally, I'm at peace now, because I've partnered with an institution who shares our values so that our work, my work, will continue for generation after generation. So what does this mean on the ground? On the ground, it means for our students, particularly the deaf learners, there is going to be continuity of programs. There are very, very specific programs for the deaf children that are designed for their needs and the long-term staff retention to give them stable income. We employ 38 people in a community of about 5,000 people in our parish, and those are the direct employment. So you can imagine the indirect and induced and the ripple effect within that community. For the wider community, it means a trusted institution that continues to supply skilled and responsible workers for the citizens. The biggest challenge with family-owned businesses is when the founder and the entrepreneur and the owner loses his or her identity, and that enterprise that he started with very good intentions becomes his or her identity. And the moment that happens, everything we're talking about here of letting go, control, passing on to the next generation, professionalizing, management, governance, they're all very good things to say, but when that individual looks at where he come from and what he has done and the status he has in the community as a result of being recognized as the founder, chairman, shareholder, CEO, and people start and clamp, and he shares his story, it's not easy to let go. And that is one of the biggest problems we have. I knew that this was never about me. It was about the cause, it was about the mission, and I did what I had to do when I have the ability to do it. Because in my view, succession is not something you postpone. Succession, you're not something you expect to be done once you're forced to do it. But most importantly, succession is not an event. It is a process. You start by when you start. I sit on a number of boards. The moment you're appointed as a board member, you already start the succession. Likewise, that's the way it should be for family business if we are going to ensure that they continue. So in conclusion, what's my message to the conclave? I'm going to say this again. You will die someday. And if you do not want the family business to die soon after you, do something about it, and do it now. Start early, because the earlier you plan, the more thoughtful you can be about that process. Be purposeful and define what you want to survive. Is it the name? Is it the values? Is it the people that you serve? What is it? Because I saw the challenge that we have, especially with the young generation, that we have schooled in very, very good schools, and we expect them to come back and sit in In Luganda, we call them the viduka. These are shops which have got cement and iron bars and nails and whatever. And I've got so many friends of mine in that business. And they do a lot of money. They've sent their children to very, very good schools. But no young person at 24 years old is going to come back from Sheffield, Nottingham, LSE, you name it, Strathmore, and go in Chikobo to start selling cement and nails and iron bars. But they don't have to do it, but neither do you have to close the shop or business because they are not going to do it. So the partnership I've done with the church has forced things on me. I'm a very, very highly trained and accomplished accountant or financial person. It's not for me to say, but I've just said. But to be honest with you, it's not until I got into this arrangement that I cleaned up my house. So memorandum and articles, shareholders agreement, how many board members come from the other side, constitution of the governance board, the decision-making matrix, and that is now, I can say, cast in stone, in the sense that we have a foundation which is owned by the family, we have shares now that are owned by the Catholic Church, we have a governance structure that brings people from all sides, and we have a management team which is different and independent from the family. And like I said, I'm at peace because that work, which is very impactful and very, very rewarding, is going to continue. So in conclusion, I say true measure of success is not the stuff that we accumulate and we keep for ourselves until death parts us from them. But it is what we leave in the hands of others so that that work endures. Succession is not an event, it is a process. It works best when you start doing it while you're still in control. So please, if the intention is for whatever it is that you're doing to continue beyond you, start the conversation now, choose the right stewards. They may not be the family. Because is it about the family? Is it about the enterprise? Is it about the mission? Is it about the values? Is it about the society and the community you're serving? Pass on your wisdom where you still can. And most importantly, that is how you'll be remembered. Thank you very, very much.